sanctifying the public mitzvah for Hanukkah and not for Pesach, or for also we were questioning for which one? Purim, yeah, Pesach and Purim. So those were the two arguments. I know Yosef was interested in hearing about the second one. I was very interested in the first. So we can continue from there.
So in short,
it's a Torah book.
In short, the reason why there's you reminded me. The reason why we make a point of publicizing the Ness of Hanukkah as opposed to eating matzah in public, because Yetzias Mitzrayim was something that happened in public, very much in public. It has, by nature, has been a very publicized event, as well as Purim. They waged war. Hanukkah, when we're talking about the miracle of the oil, in particular, that hasn't been a public miracle. The menorah, the miracle of the menorah, and what the menorah represents, has not been a publicized ness. That's why we try to publicize it. That's why we make it our business to publicize this one in particular, to thank Hashem and to publicize what actually happened, which may not be very well known without. That's one of the reasons given. Don't want to get into the whole thing, but yeah, that's make sense. But if you want, you could still. I mean, if the weather's nice and it's a Pesach-friendly environment, you could have your matzah in your backyard.
Publicize it for the goyim or for fellow Jews?
As a matter, I just want to mention something interesting, and you mentioned it yesterday, I think, and I wanted to say it. What happens if someone's living, I don't know, in rural Kentucky, and there aren't any Jews? Do you make a bracha? You're not publicizing it.
The point isn't to publicize it.
And no, actually, it says that v'skadilti v'skadishti, based on a pasuk, that I will become aggrandized and sanctified, says Hashem, bein ha'am, amongst the nations. So having a publicity, the miracle being publicized amongst the nations, is also a thing.
But don't we do it for our family now?
No, of course. And not only do you do it for your family, I'm sure you learned that if you're a little late in the game, especially after midnight, when it's still the time, but it's kind of late, it's not really the time, because ideally you should do it earlier, certainly before midnight. If you come home and there's no one awake, you should try to wake up someone. I mean, if it's your teenager, you have to, count your risks, consider, the pros and the cons. But, no, actually, if it's just kidding. If it was your teenager, you didn't go to sleep yet. Yeah.
For the goyim or for the fellow Jews? What's the public there?
Both.
No, ideally, mainly it's for the Jews. But I'm just saying the chiddush is there is also some level of publicity and accomplishment when it's being publicized for the goyim.
You can say that about every mitzvah? I mean, every nest that we do?
Every nest that has to be publicized, that you're praising and thanking Hashem for. It's about thanking Hashem, praising Hashem for His greatness and kindness. So that's something. It's not just Hashem's greatness and kindness doesn't have to be kept a secret for the Jews. Hashem is the God of the universe.
But it's an Indian specific, like, even for going, we should publicize.
Light to the nation.
Then you have, I'm not going to get into it, the different philosophy. We're in Golus, we're in exile, don't antagonize the Goyim, don't, light candles, but not too many. Put them on your window, but not in your car. We're not going to get into that whole mentality and discussion now. Okay.
And as far as whether it's more holy or chilul to light your menorah at a higher apartment.
Well, what did you say?
We were suggesting that perhaps
Yeah.
the higher you are off the ground, the more holy the mitzvah is you completed.
Why?
I don't quite recall the reason. I remember it was.
No, that was a different. That was the thing. No, we were talking about lower down.
On the,
We're saying theoretically, if you're in a lower apartment from that conversation yesterday.
Yeah, it says
It's in the public domain.
we should do some rentals, Jewish Hanukkah apartment rentals. If you're living in a hard
First floor
you should
only,
have the opportunity of being
To go lower.
within the
That
view.
within 20 within 30 feet.
The 30 feet about.
Start a business.
We should do it.
Oh, we got something. We found our niche.
Not in Florida, everything's one story.
Our niche.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We should build it all over the world.
let me ask you another question today. What else? We were supposed to get into something else. Just this? Right. Okay. So at the end of the day, being that we light indoors anyway, and it's based on the Gemara that says b'shas hasakona manichoi al shulchanoi v'dayoy. If it's during a sakana, all you have to do is put it on your table, and you are good to go. By the way, I just want to ask a question. What do you mean b'shas hasakana? What do you mean during a sakana? You're allowed to put yourself in danger?
We said that yesterday. We said
No. So you said, what did you say? You said what?
that the Tosfos defines the sakana as it wasn't so bad.
But not everyone agrees.
Okay.
Not everyone agrees, and I just want to bring out a point over here. It says b'shas hasakana manichoi al shulchanoi v'dayoy. Okay, fine. The Ritva asks, not Tosfos. The Ritva says that the shas hasakana, it doesn't mean. We'll get to it in a moment. Let's first ask. The Ritva says, how can a person put himself in danger for this mitzvah? You're not supposed to put yourself in danger or allow yourself to be killed for doing a mitzvah which is a positive mitzvah. A mitzvah, a negative mitzvah, a loisaseh, you're allowed to. But a positive mitzvah, you're not allowed to.
In the Holocaust, Jews were wearing tefillin.
One second. I'll get to Elisha Bala Knafayim, we'll get to that in a moment. But in general, the tefillin, it's a positive mitzvah. Halachically speaking, strictly halachically, not emotional or not. If it's a positive mitzvah, it's very questionable if you're allowed to give your life when there's a decree not to do it, and you proceed to do it anyway.
I think it's just it's not guaranteed like a gun on your head type situation.
No, so Tosfos said, the risk of lighting Hanukkah candles in that particular season, the risk was that they're going to come in there and they're going to take it away or confiscate it or whatever it is. It wasn't literally a danger, but not everyone agrees.
Isn't the whole point b'shas hasakana? It's a sakana to put it by your window. If you're putting it inside, how do you know that's a sakana at all? Isn't the whole point of the Gemara? It's saying b'shas
You're still risking it.
sakana.
You're still risking it if they see candlelight in your house. According to some, you can't light any candles.
I don't.
According to some, you can light only in it, but not. Others say the decree was against Hanukkah candles. So the Ritva resorts, and he says that really, similar to the Tosfos, that really it wasn't a sakana in sakonas nefashos, known as your life being placed in danger. He says shas hasakana means the sakana of being made uncomfortable. They're going to create great discomfort, or political relationship is going to be at risk. However, the Bach says, and this is what I want to share with you. The Bach says from the Tur, before Shulchan Aruch, the Tur Shulchan Aruch, the Bach says that Shas HaSakana means that they made a decree that the Jewish people should not do any mitzvahs. Period. He holds like the Ran. The Ran says Shas HaSakana was a time of Shmad. You know what Shmad is? They would force the Jewish people to give up their religion, not to be Jewish, not to be observant, needless to say. So if that's the case, how can we say B'Shas HaSakana you put the Hanukkah candles on the table and you're good to go, when in fact you're putting yourself at risk. How may you?
Maybe it's like
Huh?
it's like you can do it, not that you must do it. So it's not.
But how may you do it? There's a halachic
What's
problem.
wrong? What's wrong with May doing it?
You're putting your life at risk.
But not explicitly. And it's not like if the rule was
Even
you must,
questionably. What do you mean? You can't potentially put your life at risk even if it's not 100%.
So when there was that day of hate a couple months ago with mosque, do you think you should have to not wear a yarmulke in public because there's a chance that you might get brutalized or politically?
No, I didn't say that. As a matter of fact, someone asked me, more than one person asked me, you know, and usually when they say they're asking for someone else, they're asking for themselves. I said, could we move our mezuzahs? Like, you know, remove them or move the mezuzahs to the, you know, just for, are we allowed to do it? And I told them, mezuzah is a protection of your house. So now you're removing, you know, you're telling me you're scared, so that's why you're removing your protection?
With the mindset, it's the same thing. It's the same concept of hiding away.
So, I hear what you're saying. I'm not arguing. I hear what you're saying. But the question is, are you allowed to? In other words, strictly according to the law. Are you allowed to? Your life, you can't just give up your life because you're in the mood or not in the mood. It doesn't work that way.
Like,
there has to be halachic guidelines.
If you have like a basement and you're able to do it, then you should try to do it. It shouldn't
Fine.
be like you must do it.
But it doesn't say you put it in the basement. You go down in the dungeon, in a bomb shelter, and that's where you light it. It doesn't say that.
You cover up your windows wherever you can, try and make it work. It doesn't.
But it's still a risk.
I think what it's saying is you shouldn't go and pretend like nothing's happening and go out in public or out the window and do it. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Trying to find a happy medium.
Actually, the Bach says, being that it was a time of Shmad,
That they had to, yeah.
there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin,
Yeah.
there's another Gemara that says that you're actually in a time when you're forced not to do Torah mitzvahs. That's the time when you are required to have mitzvahs nefesh. You're required to give up your life to do Torah mitzvahs.
So then, how could you put
That's
it? How
why-
could you put it on the table? You need
that's
to put it on the
why
window.
Even with the sakana, the Chachamim did not uproot the mitzvah of Hanukkah candles because it was the season, the situation where they made a gzeda like Shmad. That's why you necessarily have to.
So if you necessarily have to, then why are you putting it on the table? You should put it in the window.
You don't
No,
have to go
that's-
out of your way to put yourself in danger.
But you're going out of your
Just-
way to.
No, you're not going out of your way. You continue doing what you're doing.
But you're going out of your way to pull it in, to be
You're not.
secretive about it.
When they say you're not supposed to circumcise yourself, they didn't bring the babies out in the street and circumcise them.
But they did whatever they did normally. They didn't hide in the
How
basement.
do
They
you
did in
know?
their
How do
shul.
you know?
I don't know.
How do you know?
No, they
didn't.
probably took the necessary
You know,
precautions.
it doesn't say you have to do it publicly. It says Dafka have,
you
to,
have
do
to
it,
do it, yeah.
even if it requires Mesilas Nefesh. In other words, if the only way of doing it would be in public, then you would have to do it. But that's not the only way of doing it, so why go out of your way?
And also, when they went on Mesilas Nefesh, they didn't go out in the streets and learn Torah. They hid it. That was still Mesilas Nefesh.
The Maccabees weren't spinning dreidels in public streets.
However,
The
there is a
dreidel was
little
good,
bit of a
though. That was the
problem.
whole point of the
Rabbi
dreidel.
Akiva Eger,
That was the whole point of the dreidel.
Yeah, it was in the cave, bro.
Just to spin it though in the streets.
Rabbi Akiva Eger brings a Ramah, a halachic ruling of the Ramah, when it comes to these matters in Avodah Zarah, when you have the Goyim oppressing the Jews and prohibiting them from keeping Torah and mitzvahs, it says only by a mitzvahs loisase, only by negative commandments do you say Yehorig val Yavor, he should be killed and not transgress those negative mitzvahs. Versus when it comes to positive mitzvahs, that's not the ruling. And Hanukkah, besides it being from the Rabbanon, we're not going to go into that, but it's a positive rabbinic mitzvah. It's one of the 7 positive mitzvahs with Rabbanon. So
Is that Rabbi Akiva Eger according to him? Because I think I remember learning Kitzur Shulchan Aruch or something where he says even a minhag or something. You have to know
that's Arkas the Masani. Arkas the Masani over there, if they, for the sake of Avodah Zarah, they when it was for Avodah Zarah reasons, they would forced you to wear a different color shoelace. Let's say if black was what Jews would wear, you would have to wear white, whatever it is. Even for that, you would have to give up your life for it.
Wow.
But there's an interesting Gemara over here in Shabbos. If you want to look at Daf Mem Tes, there's a story of Elisha in the time of the Romans.
Aleph or Beis?
Huh?
Aleph?
Mem Tes, Aleph, 49. There's a story of Elisha that he was walking with his tefillin on his head in the time when the Romans decreed not to do so. They said whoever puts on tefillin, basically they'll puncture his head. And when a particular Roman guard spotted Elisha, he started to run after him. And he said, "Oh, I only have dove wings." And in fact, a ness occurred. A miracle happened to him. And he showed, it was a dove wing. And here Tosfos asks, Tosfos over there,
I think it's
David Amaschel
it's
Notlam,
Elisha Baal
right?
29.
Tosfos asks, why does Elisha remove the tefillin from his head? Don't we have a Gemara in Sanhedrin that says that during Shmad, even on a light mitzvah, you have to transgress? Yehorig val yavod. Even if it means being killed, you have to do the mitzvah and not transgress that mitzvah. Which means, like we just said, that's the source of what we just discussed. That even when the goyim have a particular decree of going with, dressing a certain way, you would have to let yourself be killed for that. If it's during the time of Shmad, during the time of the decree associated with not listening to Torah and mitzvahs, etc. So why does he remove the tefillin? He should be bold and brazen. So he answered, so Tosfos answers that to go, you're giving an example of going with non-Jewish garments. Walking with non-Jewish garments is actually more severe than going without tefillin. Because when he goes with non-Jewish garments, he's actually behaving and practicing what they practice. He's looking and behaving like them. Versus if he's walking without tefillin, he's not behaving like the goyim. So it's not that issue. In other words, it's not the issue of the time. Going with non-Jewish garments is the issue, is the decree. Because you have many Jewish people who walk around without tefillin. Even though then the common custom may have been to walk with tefillin all day, but it wasn't every last Jew's custom. So it's not necessarily a non-Jewish thing, a non-Jewish way of dressing if you go tefillin free. Versus if you dress a certain way, the way the goyim dress, that would be an issue. So therefore, this particular mitzvah, even during the Shmad, you don't have to kill yourself for it. That's what Tosfos says. Which would also bring to light what we discussed before, why you don't have to put the menorah. You could make do with keeping it in your house, or even in your basement, because it doesn't have to be. Your house doesn't look not Jewish that way. Even though when things are normal and calm, there is something called marasayin. There is something. There are questions. What happens if a person has two doorways to the courtyard? Do you have to light two menorahs? Why? Because the one who goes by is going to think that you didn't light the menorah. So there is something to be said about making sure that you don't appear as if you didn't do the mitzvah.
My sign is that someone's going to think you didn't do it, or he's going to think because you didn't do it, he doesn't have to do it. What's my sign?
No. He knows that it has to be done, but he saw you not doing it, so you're not coming across as doing the correct thing.
Why is that a problem?
Why is that a problem? You shouldn't come across as not going in accordance with the rules and the decrees of the Chachamim. They set it up as such.
But that's a problem for me. I'm saying I should go. I have to do the right thing. But why is that a problem for someone else?
Because you're coming across that way, and other people are getting that message.
And
And that's a wrong message.
There's a pasuk V'yisem Nakiyim, right? You're supposed to be
Correct.
clean in the eyes of Hashem and Jews. There's a
Correct.
pasuk that says it.
Let me ask you another question. We just mentioned that Hanukkah is with Rabbanon. Hanukkah is with Rabbanon. Yeah. So I'm leading you in a little bit into, but not completely, into the answer to this question. Why, when it comes to other Yomim Tovim, there's a Sveika de Yoimo. We always have an extra day over there in case, because we're not certain 100% when Rosh Chodesh could have, would have, should have been. And therefore, we add a day just to make sure that you cover all of the right days. So why is Hanukkah not 9 days? JIC. Yes.
Because there is a transgression of the Tov or involved in accidentally miscelebrating the holiday.
Please explain.
Well, because with other holidays, if you get the wrong days, then you can accidentally, for example, on Sukkot you can be eating, it's not called not Sukkot, on, thinking that's Pesach. And the point is, like, you can celebrate Pesach on a day it's not supposed to be celebrated, and the other day that's left out, you can be not celebrating the day it should be celebrated. So in that way, you could be transgressing the Yom Tov and committing sin.
well, you're not going to be lighting the candle on the
okay.
day you should be.
Huh?
No, I'm saying you could be not lighting a candle on the day you should be,
Which is not necessarily.
which is a problem.
You're saying a bracha.
And also.
No, you're not doing it wrong.
And also on that level, the other way around, let's look at it the other way. When you're adding an extra day of Yom Tov, it's at the expense of something too. You're not putting on tefillin if it's Yom Tov.
And
If
there's
it's
brachas come in vain.
if it's Shmini Atzeres and Tzich Basoida, or it's Shvi Shal Pesach and Achron Shal Pesach, you're adding another day. You're not putting on tefillin.
Is the answer because it's made it's not the right?
So I led you into that a little bit, but that doesn't fully satisfy. We'll get to that in a
Because it's
moment.
so late in the month or what?
First, I want to hear. I want you guys to pipe up. Get a
But that's
little
just the opposite
Very
round.
much
First, we have to
something
do.
Not all at once, though.
It's so late in the month that they had time to get word out maybe when the Rosh Chodesh was. It's the 25th.
That's one of the answers, correct. You know, those by then, by Chaf Hey, you know, if it was like mid-month or the earlier part of the month, so they could be a little iffy. By then, you know, the later Chaf Hey, they already had their act together. By then, you know, it kind of wasn't texted out, but the message, you know, the clarification was there. Okay, that's one of the answers. That's correct.
Purim is also only one day.
Huh?
Purim is also only one day. It's the same
Okay.
thing. Hanukkah and Purim, we both say Al
Purim is not necessarily only one day. There's Shushan Purim.
Yeah, there's the 20, the 15, the 14.
That's
for-
part
for-
of the original
Could be
part of it.
20,
okay.
It's not an added thing.
Okay.
I thought today we were doing dates.
Okay, so the short answer is when it comes to Rabbana, they're not machmir. That was the short answer I led you into. In other words, so they're not matriach. That's a general answer.
Why is it
When it's a
matriach?
mitzvah with Rabbana, they're not matriach. They don't.
Why is it being matriach? It's adding in the simcha.
Ask your mother when she has to cook extra meals if it is or not. It's easy for you to eat.
I'm sure Jewish mothers appreciate more Yom Tovim. I'm sure it's not a burden for them.
I'm just
But I
saying,
think it's more about
depends where the question is coming from. Is it like, you know, hey, I have an extra day of no school? Of course it's a Yom Tov. I don't know if it's a Yom Tov for the mothers who want their kids to go to school. Okay, so that's one. Or, but there's a cute answer. They wanted to keep it at 8 because they wanted to remind us of what the Yevanim wanted to do. They wanted to nullify the mitzvah of Milah. That's one of the mitzvahs that they want to eradicate. And the mitzvah of Milah is, of course, connected to day 8.
So why is Purim over there now too?
No, that doesn't have that reason. So it doesn't necessarily have.
All right, so that's what I'm asking.
So the original answer that we gave, it's a mitzvah midrabanon, and they're not matriach. Imagine you would have to prepare and give Mishloach Manos. Nah, you like that. Imagine you have to hear the Megillah 4 times a day.
Oh no! What will we do?
4 times in 2 days in one place for 25 minutes per time per Megillah reading.
There's some cities where they're unsure whether or not there was walled cities or not, and so they have to do it both days, 14 times.
You have a certain sveika diyom. You have a certain, but that's because you don't know what applies to begin with. Is it walled or not? You don't know to begin with which day applies to it.
What is it?
It's not a sveika diyom. It's a suffix on the metzias. Is it a walled city area or not?
What's the 7 mitzvahs there about him?
Why?
I just don't know.
Because the simon is no besimcha. Nun ayin besimcha. Nun is Netilas Yadayim. Ayin is Erevin. Beis is Brachas. Shin is no. I know I have your senior moment over here.
Simcha say that?
The what? The Mem is Megillah. The Ches is Chanukah. The Hey. What's it? Shin is Netilas Yadayim. Erevin. There's Netilas Yadayim also. That's no.
You said no.
He's trying to get back at. He's trying to get in the rhythm to get it.
Megillah, a Chesi Mechanaka, a Hey is Halil. So what's the Shin? No. Oh, Shabbos, Neder Shabbos.
Shabbos candles, Shabbos.
I had a senior moment there. I'm very sorry.
It's good.
Neder Shabbos, not
Welcome to the
Shabbos.
club.
The Shabbos candles.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now you know?
No, no.
Okay.
At least I remember some of them.
Na besimcha?
Wait, no b'simcha. Okay.
No, Bit Simcha.
No b'simcha. So Netilas Yadayim,
Erevin.
Erevin, Netilas Yadayim.
Brachas.
No, that was-
Brachas.
Oh, sorry. B'simcha's brachas. Shin was Shabbos candles. Mem was Megillah. Ches was Chanukah, and Halal.
Good.
What's it called? Brachas was instituted by who? I know the first.
Rabbanon. The first bracha, the bracha Rishoina, is with Rabbanon, and the bracha Achroina is with Torah. That's why Sofik bracha is lahakel. That's why, there's another question. Or in general, there's a rule, there's a din. Whenever you're unsure whether or not you have to make a bracha, Rishoina, Sofik bracha is lahakel.
It doesn't have anything to
Like if you're eating and did I make a bracha or not? So, Sofik brachas local, you don't make another bracha. If, however, after you ate, you had a meal, and you don't recall if you benched, if you said the bracha achroina, then over there it's Sofik d'oraisa the chumrah. It's Sofik menatoida. Over there you have to be machmed. You would have to not repeat it. You would have to say it in case you didn't.
saying it when it says bracha in Noah B'Simcha.
Yeah, it's bracha Rishoina.
Bracha Rishoina, it's nothing to do with the 100 brachas.
That's a separate takana.
But it's not considered.
David HaMelech,
Right,
that
but
he
it's
saw.
nothing to do with the.
Those are the brachas, yeah. Those are the brachas that you make. Talking about Hanukkah, did anybody ever hear why is Hanukkah not mentioned? You said why is it Masechta Shabbos? So we said because we were talking about the candles and the wicks, whatever it is, makes sense. But why is there no separate? Why does it have to be absorbed in Masechta Shabbos? When it comes to Purim, what do you have? What Masechta do you have?
Megillah.
Megillah. When it comes to Pesach, what Masechta do you have? Pesachim. So when it comes to Chanukah, what Masechta do you have?
Shabbos.
No Masechta. It's absorbed in Shabbos. The question is why?
I heard that they didn't have a masechta for anything that was not in it. Every masechta corresponded to something midoraisa. It was in
Megillah?
Tanakh. You have Esther. Esther. Megillah was in Tanakh.
That's a little bit of a stretch.
Okay. That's what I heard. I didn't come up
You
with it.
have it
Is
in
it a good
Tanakh.
stretch?
I didn't come up with it.
And Mordechai also, Morderoyer. Also a possible. No, really. I mean, it's hinted. So the question is, why doesn't Rabbi, the author of Mishnayos, have a separate, independent Chanukah Mishnayos? Megillah is with Rabbanan, and Knesset Agdoila established it, just like Chanukah.
Because it's not a Yom Tov.
Is it?
It's not a Yom Tov.
Hanukkah's a Yom
Or it's not like.
What about Purim?
Tov. Purim's a Yom Tov.
Yeah.
Purim's a Yom Tov. Rabbinic Yom Tov. Initially, they wanted to make a decree that no work should be done, but that
Didn't fly.
Right.
Not for 8 days.
That didn't fly. No, Purim.
Oh, Purim. Oh.
Look, the Gemara of Hanukkah is only 2 dafim long, so they're going to make a Masechta for 2 dafim. It's a short.
So which
They didn't have
What,
much
what
to
do you
say.
care? You learn a Masechta Mishnayos Baal Peh very quickly. What do you care? It's
I'm saying they never
Masechta
made
is based
Masechta.
on length.
How could he make a
No,
Masechta if it's 2 dafim long?
The way that they memorized it,
There's
the
no
way that the Mishnahs are put together in a way that it can be memorized easily and that it for it flow. Even in the
There's
order
no
of
Mishnahs
Masechtas
about
itself.
Gemara, about Hanukkah. There's no
Why?
Because they didn't have much to say on it. That's it.
Really?
Yeah. It's only 2
So the
dafim.
Chassam Sofer says
That's the
that
fact.
Rabbi, this is a little bit of a wondrous answer, but we'll see at the end what it really means. Rabbi was from Malchus Beis David. He was from the descendants of David. What happened with the Bnei Chashmonaim? What did they do?
They took
They were
the
anti-Davidists.
They
Anti-David.
infiltrated, right? They took over. They took over whatever. And in other words, they weren't really worthy. They took it for themselves. That's why he didn't want to publicize this mess that was done through the infiltrators, through the sabotagers, so to say.
So you think it's
But it's a little questionable. Like what do you mean?
Yeah.
Hanukkah should be compromised just because he has
A personal
a family dispute over there.
Cost of Shalom.
But it was because they infiltrated and they fused the 2 powers of the the Kohanim and the Melachim.
What does that got to do? What does that got to do with
how to
Hanukkah?
celebrate Hanukkah?
Why is there no
Masechta
Masechta
because of
Hanukkah?
that, we actually lost the second temple because the Hashmonaim became so corrupt at some point that things got really nasty.
It's not just the personal thing. It's an objective.
In other words, because they did something like you did, that's why I didn't want to mention them. Okay, correct, but not everyone says that would be sufficient.
We mentioned them anyway. We just don't have a Masechta name on Hanukkah.
He says the Chassam Sofer says elsewhere, and this makes in a way makes more sense, that the mitzvahs that are so common, so popular, so well known, like tzitzis, like tefillin, like Hanukkah, you don't have to make a separate Masechta for it because it's so well known that it's unnecessary.
By the Masechta Ketana.
But we said before.
Masechta Ketana on it.
But I'm saying there's no Masechta Ketana on tzitzis, there's no Masechta Ketana on tefillin.
Maybe you
But
can also
tzitzis
say it
and
was-
tefillin
I think there are some, no?
they're absorbed in menachos.
No, don't they print, I think it's the back of the Zara, something there's Masechtas, Mezuzah.
Maybe you could also say it was a pretty fresh mitzvah. There wasn't a lot of questions on it. It wasn't a lot of need for discussion. It was pretty clear.
That's what we're saying. No, because it was so popular.
Right,
It
that's
was
that's
so
sort of what I
so
was
common.
saying. There's not much to say about it. There's only 2 dafim.
Other, so what? Others say that it's actually already recorded in Megillus Tainus.
That doesn't answer because it's
Yeah,
still not a
because
Masechta on
Tainus is
itself.
also- yeah.
Which came before. So, being that it's already mentioned over there, then we didn't have to repeat what was already mentioned in the Megillus Tainus that records the various different historic events.
The Gemara pastes it over here. It's only a few lines. Megillus Tainus said it's
But
only
it
a few
was
lines.
the Maisa, there's no Mishnayos. The Gemara also talks about tzitzis. The Gemara also talks about tefillin.
That's what I'm saying. There's not much to say about it.
There's not much to say about tefillin and tzitzis.
About Hanukkah, yeah. The Gemara didn't have much to say. The Gemara didn't have enough to say to make a whole Masechta. What's
Tefillin, there isn't a lot to say about. There isn't like kama v'kama dinim.
I mean, if you look
There-
at
there are
it's
common-
not
common
all
things,
about
not in the
Megillah.
Gemara.
There's a lot of Gadot and other things as well.
Also true, but whatever it is, I don't see that. I don't see that being, So that could be part of whatever is very common and well known. You don't have to. So you could say, being that there's not that much material, so it's common and well known. It's considered common and well
How
known.
long was the Gemara
Various
after-
verses, if it would have been,
Gemara after-
very, very lengthy
after the Hanukkah?
and detailed. It may or may not have been otherwise.
But Rabbi
It was
Marlow,
like
we
400
said
years.
earlier that the reason we have to publicize Hanukkah is because it's
Pretty
not as
fresh.
well known.
Makes sense.
The ness,
It
how
wasn't that long
the
after.
details
The
of
nature of the miracle.
the nature of the miracle,
It's
how
500
the
years.
oil,
Oh, yeah, okay,
and
I
how it
take back
burns.
my-
That was indoors. That wasn't something that that was happening
the
in the
nature of the
streets.
miracle was less well known, but not the mitzvah. Like the mitzvah was well known.
No, that's why the mitzvah has to be publicized.
I think
And done in a way
all these
that,
answers in this
to
sense
make
very
it well
strong.
known, to celebrate the
Yeah.
miracle in a way that
I
you're
don't
making it
understand
well
what
known
it was.
and you're publicizing it.
But in all essence, all these answers are kind of really lacking. I mean,
And the whole
none of them
The
satisfy.
highest
If this is a real question, I don't
It's
think
not a
any of
real
these
question.
answers really satisfy.
What?
They're like kind of like okay, fine, but they're not like yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, so for tomorrow, Dr. Morozov is going to come up with
Rabbi. No.
maybe a better one. Maybe a better answer. But the, 1 second. But the
You got
question you
homework.
like? The question is a
Yeah,
question?
I think
Okay,
it's fine.
okay, so you have the responsibility of coming up with a
Oh,
satisfactory answer.
Oh,
Have a wonderful day, ladies.
thank you, Rabbi Marlow.
You better come up with an answer.
I don't know if I'm smart enough for that.